So welcome to the Home of Self-Transformation. Today I'm doing a little bit of a video and just to describe a little bit about what self-transformation is, what it looks like, and how it can benefit your life. Now the first thing I'm going to say is that my life and Lauren's life is a reflection of this transformation, of this internal transformation. And so to understand what internal transformation looks like, we need to first understand the layers or the levels in which we can transform ourselves. And the first layer and level which I'm going to talk about is the one that most of us operate in, which is kind of like that level of distraction, or that level of which we hope things are going to get better in the future. And it leads us to being like future focused. It leads us to being focused on a future event, a future scenario, or the hope that life's going to change, the hope that things are going to get better. I mean, if you really want to transform your life, you have to be deadly honest and deadly open with yourself and see whether what I'm speaking, is that the truth, or am I just talking nonsense? Like, are you happy with your life now? Are you content with your life now? If I said to you, your life was never ever going to change, and that from this point onwards, your life was going to be a repeat of what you're doing, of your life now. I mean, how many people out there would be truly happy with that? And it poses the next question. Why do we always need to constantly escape our life now? Like, what are we trying to get away from? What are we trying to make better? And it comes down to that number one thing that we need to become aware of as human beings, because unless we become aware of it, we can't change it. And what we need to become aware of is that what we're trying to control is how we feel. How you feel is your number one priority. Because how you feel is dictating your life experiences. And if we're always trying to get away from where we are now, what we're trying to get away from is how we feel now. Because for most of us, we're not happy with our life now. We might be happy with certain parts of our lives. There might be parts of our lives that are happy, but I'm talking about across the board. Are you happy in every part of your life? In every part of your life? Are you so happy and content with your life that you are living in a natural joy, in a natural goodness, where you feel naturally good? You don't need to go and do anything. You don't need to achieve anything. You don't want anything because you feel naturally good now. Because unless we get real with ourselves, we can't actually change anything. And so when I look back at my life before I went through this whole process, it's been a 5-year process. When I look back at my life, I see that all I was constantly doing was trying to escape where I was now. I was trying to escape it through ways of making myself feel better. So how was I making myself feel better? I was smoking weed. I was going to the gym. I was obsessed by how I looked. I was obsessed by my image. I was obsessed with becoming something. I was obsessed with, I need to be successful. Why do I need to be successful? Because that will make me feel better. Why do I need to smoke cannabis? Because that will make me feel better. Why do I need to go to the gym 5-6 days a week and eat obsessively and take steroids? Because that will make me feel better. Or I believe that will make me feel better. But what I'm really saying is, I don't feel good now. I need something to make me feel other. I'm not okay with how I feel. And unless we see that, because I couldn't see that. I could not see that. Every day I lived in this way of coping through unhealthy ways, because when we cope in unhealthy ways. This is what attachment is. When you're attached to something, you're using it to cope. And so when you're done with coping in your life, then you can begin to change. And this brings us into the second level. What am I coping with? I'm coping with the fact that I'm unhappy. I'm coping with the fact that this relationship is not bringing me fulfillment. I'm unhappy with the fact that I go to a job that I hate. I'm unhappy with the fact that I don't have enough money in my bank account. You see, so when we start getting real with ourselves, now we open up the door to change. Change starts the moment you get real with yourself. From the very moment you get real with yourself, I want to change. You make that acknowledgement, boom. Now a new frequency goes out. I want change. And God goes, you always get what you want. You want to cope? Here's a million ways for you to cope. You want change? I'll open the door for you to change. And then once you actually go full force into change, you'll begin to realize there's only one thing that you need to work on. And that is changing how you relate to yourself. Changing how you feel about yourself. But changing how you feel about yourself doesn't mean removing all of the negative that you feel. It means that you begin to build a different relationship with how you feel. You see, change we all automatically associate with getting rid of the wrong. And the reason why we find ourselves in suffering, the reason why we feel like we have to cope is because we're continuously trying to get rid of what's wrong with us. When actually, what's wrong with you needs to be understood. Because you're fighting with parts of yourself, you're fighting with painful truths that you have about yourself. You're trying to overcome a painful truth that you have. If you feel like you wasn't loved and you wasn't acknowledged, and that nobody cared for you, that's a painful truth. But because we haven't accepted this truth and allowed us to feel this truth, we cope with the truth. You see, and we've been doing this since we were children. We've been coping since we were children. We've been coping with our painful truths since we were children. And so we come out of coping and we come into understanding. And this is where the work begins. Understanding your unhappiness, feeling your unhappiness, acknowledging your unhappiness, not trying to escape it, but by being in it and honouring it. And when you stop fighting with it, these emotional aspects begin to reveal themselves. These painful truths come up to the surface. And as they come up, as you allow these truths, because when you fight against them, you're not allowing these truths. You're not allowing yourself to acknowledge your painful truths. So when we're resisting, we're not allowing ourselves to acknowledge them. And because we're not allowing ourselves to acknowledge them, they can't come up to be released. And so we have to be comfortable with the fact that I'm unhappy. Okay, what do you want to do with your unhappiness? Do you want to get rid of it? Because if you want to get rid of it, you're going to go back into the level above, which is coping. But if you actually want to come into it and feel it, and be okay with feeling it, then you can do the work. And it takes time. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It's a process. But as you go through this process, as you start to bring love and acceptance into this war you have with yourself, then your life can begin to change because you're changing. And how you relate to the world will change because how you're relating to yourself will change. And as we pass through the trauma, we come to the core of who you are. And the core of who you are is pure love, is pure light, is pure passion, pure joy, pure expression. And we all come in like that. We all come in as pure love. As I've gone through every trauma and got to the core traumas, I've seen that beneath every core trauma is I love everybody. I love everybody. Because that was my birthright. That's what a state of love is to love everybody. But you come into this reality as a state of love everybody, and what happens? You have parents that go, listen to me. You're not doing as you're told. This is right, this is wrong. Shame. And what does that do? That begins to go, okay, this core of love is not accepted here. So then we begin to build layers of protection around it. And then we attach ourselves to pain because it keeps us safe. And it doesn't, it destroys our whole life. But in our childhood, when we can't deal with a core truth, a core painful truth, the only way we can deal with it is to cope with it. And so we start coping. And then before we know it, we're so far away from our core that we forgot what love even feels like. Because when you suppress emotion, you suppress the love. If you suppress the pain, you have to suppress the love with it. And so as you pass through the pain, more love. As you stop fighting and you begin to release more, as you release more trauma, you also release more love. As more trauma comes through, more love comes through. And as the trauma releases, the love remains. And to the point where you get back to your core, where you are just that love. And that takes time, and that's a journey, and that's a process. But it's a journey that I've been on, and it's a journey that Lauren's been on. And it's a journey and a process that our life is now dedicated towards to reflect that back to others. Because I can't change nobody. But what I can do is I can give a perspective. I can give an ability to see from a higher perspective. And that higher perspective can do its work of showing you a perspective from which you can look at and go, is he talking the truth or is he talking bollocks? Because if I'm talking bollocks, please don't listen to anything I've got to say. But if you can hear a ring of truth from what I'm speaking, then that truth reaches you in that core. It reaches you in the core of your love, in the core of your being. And it's from the core of your being, every time that you feel a charge in that, every time you feel a ring of truth in that, that core begins to emanate. And as it begins to emanate, it begins to gravitate and send out the signals for it to be more realized. And that's what we do through mindfulness, meditation, Reiki, the 7 laws of transformation, which I'm going to do another video about the 7 laws, because it's a 7-step process in which you identify an unhappy aspect of your life. You use the 7 laws to take you through yourself to identify the core truth, the core painful truth that is responsible for that unhappy situation. You release the core truth, the unhappy situation changes because you've changed. And this is the power of self-transformation. This is the power of what I do. It's the power of what Lauren does. It's the power of what we have created the Home of Self-Transformation for, to bring you back to your core. So you can have a beautiful, abundant, connected, loving, passionate life. A life that you came here to live. A life that is, it's never gone away. It's never left you. And the closer you come to the core, the closer you come to the recognition of your own purpose. And we all have that purpose. You wouldn't come here if you had no purpose. Anyway, got a whole load of retreats coming up, a whole load of events. I'm doing more one-to-ones with people, talking about or helping people see these aspects to make them conscious. So if you want any help, get involved in our courses. I've got another blog article coming up. I'm going to write it hopefully today. Just make sure to check it out on the website, because this is truly life-changing information. And this is what my life's about. It's about serving others. Till next one. Much love.